Okay, welcome to the channel. In this video we're going to be covering the brass section. When you think of brass section, you think of power, big, bold, triumphant, and just dramatic music. And in this video I'm going to go through each instrument in the brass section. We're going to talk about their characteristics, and at the end of the video I'm also going to give you three of my favorite keys and three scales essentially that I think work superbly. And we're also going to break down, you know, why the sounds work with each other and how you can get them to implement in your beats. Let's go. Okay, welcome along. My name's Henry. I'm a producer, beat maker, DJ and an artist, and I love hip-hop music. I also really like classical music, and I'm trying to fuse the two. So we'll start with this video, the brass section. Now there are 4 instruments in the brass section, okay? Trumpets, which is the highest and the brightest in terms of frequency and sort of, you know, just noise. It's just that screechy sound at the top of the frequency range. Then you have the trombones, then horns, and at the bottom you have the tubas. Okay, so let's start with the tubas. All right, it is the bass line essentially. It's got a very bloated, thick, chunky, gritty bite to it, you know, and I'm actually going to get in the door and on the keyboard and give you an example of the sounds right now. All right, so we're in Ableton. I've got the tuba loaded up on a contact library, and as you can see, it goes quite low. It's got a little bloated sound. It can get a bit more bright as you go up. Has a bit of a horn quality. It gets a bit brighter as you go up the registers, obviously. It has a little bit of a screech if you really, I guess if you're blowing on the tuba, the harder you blow. All about velocity as well. That can add more character and more layers to the sound. That's the tuba. So yeah, you wouldn't use this typically as a solo, but you know, it does have the lower tones, and it works obviously really well together as part of the section. It's a really important part of the section because it is the bass line. And I'll leave the range of what notes that these instruments play on the screen right now. And this is obviously, there's a cutoff point if you have a MIDI keyboard, but if you are playing the instrument, there are some slight room for you know, 1 or 2 notes higher. If you just a disclaimer too, I'm not a classically trained musician at all. I don't play an instrument really. I do play the keyboard. I'm learning to play the keyboard a lot more, so over time I'll be able to, you know, elaborate a bit more in deeper depths. But in terms of beat making, I've been doing that for a very long time, and I just wanted to bring these videos to you because I thought they might be interesting. But shout out to all the classically trained musicians and pianists and trumpeters, and you know, much respect to you guys. But you know, basically I'll put the range on the screen right now, and what you see, as I said, you can go a couple of notes over if the player is slightly better. For example, in the trumpet section, when you go a little bit higher, I think I'm told it requires a more elite player to reach those top notes. So I found that interesting. But moving on to the trombone. Now obviously the look of the trombone, it has that big extended bow type, I'm not sure what you call it, I'll leave it up on the screen. But look, this is the loudest. It's got like a screech to it, you know, a very, very loud, powerful part of the brass section, right? Very important. There are a couple of trombones. There's actually 2 of the main trombones. There's a bass trombone and a tenor trombone. There's several others, but we're just going to keep it simple in this video and talk about the tenor trombone, which I'll put the range up again in case you missed that. But look, has a little screech to it as well. And look, each instrument too has certain registers as you go up the scale of notes. The timbre and the tone will change, okay, which makes it more interesting and more fascinating. That the brass section can actually, you know, there's so many dynamics to it. There really are. And if you will, I'll get into the door and show you in a second. But basically, the trombone, very powerful, can add bite, grit, and noise. And let's check it out. So now the trombone. It's got a real bite and a crunch, but it's loud, you know, it screeches a little bit. Trombone, very powerful, can add a lot of power to a track. Okay, next up we got the horns. Now the horns are, you know, when you watch, like, you know, the triumphant warrior movies, or, you know, like epic films, you always hear and see horns. Lord of the Rings is a great example. And you know, where the horns come from is, well, it's basically an animal horn. Essentially, it's just you blow in it, and it's got such an ancient feel about it. But the actual characteristics, it has a very distant, warm tone to it. Okay, and it can be played nice and softly, and it is actually the gateway to the woodwind section, which is going to be the next version of this video that I'm going to do. I've just started doing some research now, but that should be coming soon. But the horns complement the woodwinds. So when you break it down in terms of how to get from A to B, in terms of which sounds, the horn is the gateway. Okay, very versatile instrument, and it's got some crunch to it as well. And it can sound powerful and epic, but it can also sound soft and vibrant and warm and distant. I love that distant sound of a horn. You know, it really is quite beautiful. Let's check it out in the door. Now the horns, right? You can see what I'm saying by the distant, warm, but yet powerful. Very versatile, still got the power, can blend well with woodwinds, as I mentioned. You know, I'm using staccato, which is just a one strike, but you could use legato, and you could sustain the sound to make it sound, you know, and blend with the flutes and oboes. Video on that coming, as I mentioned. But that's the horn. And then the last instrument is the trumpet. And again, this is probably the oldest trumpet. If you think about the ancient Egyptians or the pharaohs, there's pictures on their calligraphy, not calligraphy, hieroglyphics. But there's pictures of hieroglyphics with trumpets in them. Okay, so that just tells you how far back that goes. And trumpets, look, they are capable of just producing such a beautiful sound. You know, they can go from smoky to cool, sophisticated, sexy in some romantic movies, and they can also stand up tall and just play as a solo instrument in a brass section. It's just a beautiful, really vibrant, you know, high, bright tone to it. And I made a song called The Dying Breed. Actually, I'll leave it at the end of this video to show you how a trumpet can lead in a smoky way. So I'll put that at the end. But those are the four instruments. I'll actually get into the door now with the trumpet sounds quickly. Now the trumpet. You can really tell that it gets a little thin at the top, but it's bright and it's loud because of the high frequencies that it's displaying. It's at the top end of the frequency spectrum. it's a beautiful sound, but as I mentioned, it's often used as a solo instrument too, because it's got such a captivating sound for me, you know, and it's just beautiful. Now let's hear them all together, because that's the whole point, is when you blend them all together, they have complement each other so well, and they have just a more powerful sound. And each instrument, when you catch it in the right range, could be really amazing. Beautiful full brass orchestra. So those are the 4 instruments, the brass section. And look, there are, in an orchestra you would have multiple of each, more tubas and trombones, and a handful of trumpets. I'll leave an image up on the screen to show you roughly how many. So obviously when you're doing it in your DAW digitally, you're probably not going to have that many. You know, it might be this. You don't want to have 14 horns and tracks on your whatever DAW you have, but I would just have one of each, and then you can tweak the sounds. Now obviously the sounds themselves, depending on what plugin you have, are going to change. You know, this is just common knowledge, we know this. So, and then what you add to it, what plugins you add to it, are you going to add a bit of distortion or this or that or reverb? So you're going to be able to change the tonality of each instrument again, even after you get it. So you can only imagine the depth that you can discover. But for these, and I showed you in the DAW, I tried to mix it up and there's so many good free instruments too if you're just starting out. I mean, Spitfire, I've got loads. They've got a huge free audio library, and some of them are really good. So I'll leave the link for those in the bottom if you are just a newish producer. And if you are a producer, or if you like this kind of style, hit the subscribe button, and if you enjoyed the video, hit the like button. But while I finish, I want to just talk about some of the notes and some of the scales that I like to use when I'm playing. And E major, E, F sharp, G sharp, A, B, C sharp, D sharp, E. That has a very triumphant feel, okay? And I'll leave the notes up on the screen now. But that is just a really beautiful harmonic, like just triumphant scale. And then you have the F minor. Just great. F minor is such an amazing key. I highly recommend you checking that out. I'll leave the notes on the screen. It just sounds so great, and it sounds a bit more bright and a bit more I'll say optimistic. Not that E major isn't optimistic, but the F minor is just such a beautiful sounding scale. It really is. That is probably my favorite one. It works great for brass, and it works great for a lot of stuff, to be honest with you, but particularly brass. And I've got a lot of tracks coming out soon that I've got stashed on my DAW, you know, like most producers do. They're coming out very soon, and a lot of them are in F minor. I'll leave the picture up on the screen now to show you what keys they're in, or what notes are in that key. And the last one is B minor. It obviously starts on B. Unbelievable scale, because it's got a bit of darkness to it as well, right? And I've used these 3 scales fairly consistently along with D major, but I'm exploring more scales now. But I just found that these work particularly well And not to say that others can't, but you've got to find what scales really suit you and what you can work with. And those ones for me they just sound great. So anyway, I just want to say thank you for watching, and I will leave with a Dying Breed, which is the track I made with a lead trumpet. I hope you guys have a great day, and as I said, if you enjoyed the video, you know what to do. I've got loads more of these coming. I'm going to get this channel where it needs to be. Rap Cinematic. My name's Henry, by the way. I should have introduced myself at the beginning. This is Rap Cinematic. See you later.